Hello and welcome everyone to a new Heroes of Might and Magic free tier list, where this one we're going over the Navigator class. Now, Navigators are interesting because they fill a very specific role. I feel like they are very good as support heroes, as in they can actually build into pretty reasonable heroes that can actually just control the map for you. They end up getting a lot of knowledge. They start off with 2, and their chance to get knowledge more into the game is actually pretty good, meaning that they will actually have mana to cast spells even if you don't really give them helmets or too many levels. That is really good. Also, they are not really garbage as heroes individually, usually, because, you know, they don't really invest into Eagle Eye or learning. Most of the skills that they end up starting with are actually pretty desirable, so that's not bad whatsoever. So, without further ado, let's get into every single Navigator and tier them D to S tier. First off is we have the Andal. This is the pathfinding guy. He's a crystal specialist, meaning that he generates 1 crystal per day for a kingdom. He starts off with wisdom and pathfinding, and also one of his best qualities actually is the fact that he starts off with slow in the spellbook. And this fact, along with the kingdom resources, along with pathfinding, actually make him for a pretty decent side hero. You like to see this guy in your tavern. He starts off with a decent move because he slows you unit to speed 5 at the start of the game. And he can make into a decent side hero, even if you just have him out in the kingdom. He's already, you know, being somewhat useful to you. Then again, doesn't build into a really good main or anything like that, so I actually would put him B tier? I would say like really low B tier, but actually, yeah, B tier. Next up, we have Cosmetra. She is the Sea Witch specialist that starts off with basic wisdom and also basic water magics. She is very comparable to a hero like Zalari. However, Zalari ends up being an elementalist, meaning that he gets a bunch of cast stats immediately into the game, and in comparison, Cosmetra ends up being pretty weak, since her stats are pretty much all over the place. So she's not as good as Zalari, but she doesn't have any dead skills, and because she doesn't have any dead skills, she can actually build into a pretty good hero for support for yourself. Which is not bad, but just not having any dead skills, also being a weak class, does not really put you high. So, and the specialty is way too niche to actually make good use of. So Cosmetra goes in the C tier. And next up is we have Astra. Astra is the basic wisdom, basic luck hero that starts off with cure in her spellbook, and she's also a cure specialist. Now, cure is not necessarily a bad spell. Whenever you get like an early beefy unit into the game, you end up being able to cure spam it, and it's almost like a budget resurrection even. But apart from this like very niche early game use for the zero, she is actually not really that good. Luck is not really a hero. Luck is not the skill that you want on a support. It actually does nothing. It's pretty much a dead skill by that point. Not entirely, but mostly. So she's not good enough to make it to a main. She's not really a good side hero. She doesn't provide anything for the kingdom. She ends up being pretty garbage in my opinion, putting her at a solid D tier. Goodbye. Next up is we have Dargem. This guy is the air shield specialist that ends up starting with wisdom and tactics. He's actually notoriously good in dealing with ranged creatures in the early game. He starts off with air shield in the spellbook, of course, and air shield actually removes a lot of the damage that the early game shooters do to you. And also with tactics, so you're better off in closing the distance as well. So he does specialize in something, as in, yeah, he can do range guards, pretty much better than most other heroes actually. And I really like the fact that this hero has an identity, you know? You have ranged guards, you see this guy in the tavern and you're like, damn, okay, I'm able to handle them. And that's amazing. I really like heroes with identity. And that's the only reason he's getting C tier instead of D tier. Yeah, enjoy on the house. And now we talk about the big daddy of all navigators, the Jack Sparrow, the Eovashius. This guy is one of the most unique heroes in the game, okay? He has a clone specialty and starts off with clone in the spellbook, and what the specialty does is it makes your first cast a clone summon 2 stacks instead of 1 stack, meaning that, you know, if you get this guy on castle, you start up with a 30 marksman, and then you can just go into any fight and you're gonna be shooting with 90 marksmen. oh my god, it's so strong, and it feels so good to play. This guy is one of the best heroes in the game. He also starts with intelligence, which is a really good skill for either a side hero or a main hero, and he usually builds pretty well as well. I'm actually really surprised how well this guy builds, because you end up, you know, kind of wanting water. Because Glow specialty is that ridiculously good. You want it for your Cyclops, for your Angels, for whoever you're using. Your Vashis is gonna triple the value. And because of that, he rises above the rest to be the best of the Navigator class and one of the best heroes in the game. Super unique, super cool. He is awesome and amazing. Next up is we have Manfred. Manfred starts off with basic fire and basic wisdom. He also has the fireball in his spellbook and specializes in it. Now, fireball is not really a good spell. It's like magic arrow, but it's AoE. But then again, if you're gonna be paying like so much more mana for the AoE, then it's not really worth it. And yeah, he kind of ends up being You can like kind of build him into a side hero. You don't really want him as a main. He doesn't provide much for your kingdom in terms of utility. He doesn't really do a lot for you at all. He doesn't feel unique. Actually, I kind of like his art. It fits for like a fire magician really well. But apart from his art, I don't really like much about this fire flinging dude. Next up is we have Spint. Spint is actually one of the best sorcery specialists in the game. And now, I did hate on sorcery specialists in the last few videos. However, they're not like irredeemable. There are situations where you actually do want to squeeze out all the damage you can get from your spells. Or maybe you want to invest into a late game with a very spell-slingy type of playstyle. And Spint actually does a pretty good job at it. He starts up with wisdom and sorcery and ends up specializing in the said sorcery. And he ends up being a decent hero? Like, he doesn't build into a good side hero, and he's not very strong as a main hero either, but for those niche situations, he's actually really cool. Recently, I played a Kebab Cross game where I ended up finding an Armageddon Scroll, so I just wanted damage, pure raw damage, and also mana to use the spell that I wanted to do damage with. And Spint was actually the best choice I had, and I really wasn't disappointed. I was able to do so much with him. So I would put him high C tier, just because he's so niche. But, you know, he's not like the lowest despite being a sorcery specialist, so that's saying a lot already. And next up is we have Zalari. Zalari looks, his portrait like looks to the left side, and whenever you have him on the right side of the tavern, he looks at the left side of the tavern hero, as in, you're gonna pick that guy over me, aren't you? And goddamn right you will. You're not gonna buy this guy from the tavern at all. He absolutely blows. He has wisdom and interference at the start of the game, and he kind of like fits the role of a main hero that's also a mage. You see, the reason you don't main mages in the late game is because you end up not being able to roll interference, and that makes mage mains walk all over them if they have interference. So Zalari kind of fixes that by just having interference from the very get-go of the game. But it's like good in theory, but in practice it like never works. This guy ends up being pretty horrible. He requires a lot of investment to actually get going at all for him to be able to do anything. And even then, he's not really that great. He also starts off with Forgetfulness and is the Forgetfulness specialist, but that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really do much. Well, actually, he can't consistently get water magic, so he can kind of consistently get expert Forgetfulness, which in poor mass might be one of the only ways that you can actually get going, you know, to take that one critical fight that will enable you to do more. But that's like still way too niche to put him anywhere above C tier. So yeah. Navigators in general, in my opinion, are pretty low tier heroes that you would invest into like pretty rarely, except for Yovashius, who rises above the rest. And I feel like this is like one of the more unique situations in a hero class where just, you know, they're carried by a single guy. And holy hell does he do a good job at carrying them. Now, let's welcome our tribunal members, Ame and Farrell. Hey guys.
Hey, how are you?
Hello, Farrell. Hello, Farrell. Hello, Lexi. Thank you for having us here. So, I actually think you did a really good job on this tier list. The only one I could argue about is Darjim being so just about the last one in C tier. I think he should be the best in that.
Okay. You feel like the tactics actually carry him above the others?
Yeah, precisely, exactly. Yeah, I think he's at least better than Cosmetra and Spin. Yeah, for sure. And that's pretty much it. All I have to say.
Okay, what about Feral?
So surprisingly, I actually agree with a lot of your placements as well. I just want to put it out there. I think it's quite tragic that in the Navigator class, we don't have a single hero that starts with navigation. I feel that's a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, the best navigator is Elmore. That's a captain.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. But there's one thing I want to add. I mean, these heroes, except for Yavacious, they bad. Let's not lie about it. But what I want to say is that a lot of them can have very ultra niche purposes, but they are actually very good at doing something. So they're not completely hopeless.
Yeah, like Eagle Eye specialists are like pretty much doomed to die. None of these heroes feel like they're doomed to die as much as those guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be first day of a map, you find a random tavern, you get a Manfred, and somehow he can just end up taking a site out for you, which is not a very common situation. It's very rare, but it can sometimes be useful. So, yeah, not completely hopeless. I think it'd be great if they started with 3 knowledge instead of 2. That would change the whole class and make them much better side heroes, support heroes. But as it stands, other than Eov, you're not very happy to see most of these.
Actually, now that you mention it, I feel like they would be considered budget elementalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just a little bit more at the start. I mean, Anvil's great for having something like slow, but navigators have such a low chance of getting Earth anyway. They'll never become an expert slow, so yeah. But I also would like to shout out my boy Zalari with the forgetfulness specialty. He can sometimes be very good if you ever get expert watch on him. He can make those range fights an absolute joke, but again, ultra niche.
Yeah. I like the way the Dodgem and Zalari are looking at each other.
That's the way you look at me when I look at you, yeah.
That might be the best thing about navigators, the way they look at each other at the tavern.
Yeah, they're actually like really cool thematically. All of them look like they come from like a village next to the sea, you know? They've seen some shit.
I think Manfred, there could be an argument for S tier just based on his portrait. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, he looks like
He does look hot.
He's a sultan.
Yeah, you see that guy, you think he's gonna rip you in half, and then he does his little 20 damage fireball. But that's not the point. He looks amazing.
Yeah, he does. I'll probably eventually make tier list based on looks, and then I'll do him justice.
We all know Shakti's number 1, but still, Manfred's up there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your input as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Lexi. Bye, man.
Thanks for watching, guys.
See you guys.
Check out my subscribe to my YouTube for more content, for more tier lists and stuff, and check out me on Twitch. I'm very toxic there. You should probably go poke at me. Ciao, bye bye.